And we welcome you to the January edition of Eye on the Storm. I'm Randy Payton, the Sports Information Director here at the University of Rio Grande, joined as always by Athletic Director Jeff Lanham and a couple of guests on the show today. And we're going to get started right out of the gate with Rio Grande softball head coach Chris Hammond. It's pretty cold outside as we come to you today, but yet not this weekend, but the following weekend, the Rio softball team will be in action. And Coach, we welcome you to the show, and obviously on the heels of some success in recent years, more success, I guess, expected out of Rio softball here in 2018.
We've had about 4 weeks of practice now leading up to our start here in January or February, and teams look good. We've only been outside one day. Actually, we're going outside today and battle the elements. So this will be our second day outside using a real softball.
You've had, Randy said it, you've had a lot of success the last couple of years, and you've had a little bit of a loss from a year ago. Was it 10 people? Is that correct?
We graduated 10 last year.
10 people last year, which is kind of like a whole team.
Yeah, and matter of fact, when we opened up fall practice back in September, a lot of new faces.
Right.
It was completely different than what I've experienced.
So what's the challenge that you have? Of course, you've got new people, but what kind of challenges do you have as a coach with all these new faces coming in?
Well, I think the big thing is get them up to game speed. To me, that's the most important thing, is to get them up to game speed. And we had a couple contests in the fall, and we played 5 games, and
right.
3 of those games were against a D1 team. So they got to see that type of speed of competition. But going down to Georgia Gwinnett, who is ranked number 7 in the preseason poll, and they have probably the best leadoff hitter in college, in AIA college softball. And Nikki Cook, I think hit 600 last year, and we couldn't get her out.
so welcome, freshman.
Welcome
to the NAI.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got, as you said, a lot of new faces on this team, but a couple of good returning players to build around in Kelsey Conkey and Michaela Kreiner.
Those two had great years. Michaela was a freshman last year, and Kelsey was a redshirt sophomore. So, she's coming in her junior season, and Michaela, again, as a freshman, I didn't, the numbers she put up, good enough to be an All-American as a freshman. So
they're talking about her like you're talking about the leadoff hitter.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So, I think the big thing for them is leadership. We returned 3 starters from last year's squad, and so I think the big thing with them is leadership, and they've never had to really experience that responsibility, and now they're having to do it. Unfortunately, Michaela's probably a little bit more vocal than the other two.
As a shortstop, that's good.
That's good. But the one thing I try to tell Kelsey and Carly both, if the freshmen will follow
right.
if you show positive leadership, and they're getting there.
Obviously, some other folks are expecting big things out of you guys this year. You're picked at the top of the River States Conference preseason poll, and you're number 23 in the NAIA preseason poll. Yeah,
and they haven't seen us practice. That's all I can say about that right now. It's an honor, and the bullseye's on our back, and we knew that coming in. And I try to tell our kids it's the culture that's been developed here in the last 3 or 4 years. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So we'll accept that challenge, and the big thing with us is this team grow together, and with the young people we've got, and then the veterans, that this team grows together, and hopefully it has that chemistry that we've had the last 2 years.
What's the biggest hole that you have to fill? I would think losing Jenna Jones, one of your 2 top pitchers. Obviously, you want to get it done offensively, but the success starts with being good inside the circle, and it's going to be very, very difficult to replace the loss of her.
Oh, yeah, you don't replace Jenna. I mean, the big thing is, Mallory Powell, who her numbers last year weren't as good as what they were the year before, but I really felt Mallory had a great fall. I mean, I think she understands that, now she's got more of a role this year, and so I think she had, had a great fall, and she's really had a good winter here. That when we've come back from break, and
kind of her time to step up.
Yeah, it's kind of her time to step up.
Somebody else that I guess her time to step up, and she did for a long time last year. Kind of tailed off at the end of the year. You need a big season out of Carly Skees.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's one of my big concerns, is that number 3 spot in the lineup this year for us, and I'm kind of debating on where am I going to put Kelsey in the lineup, where I'm going to put Carly in the lineup. Last year Carly hit 3rd for us, so I'm looking to stick her there again, and in that number 3 spot. Then it leaves us to that number 2 spot. I like to have someone that's very good at bunting. And so Kelly Fox is probably going to get the call there early in the season in that number 2 spot. And Kreiner will definitely lead off. So,
one more thing before we let you go. You talk about the challenges of trying to deal with the weather and everything like that. Your first home game's not scheduled till the 16th of March. You guys are going to play 20-plus games on the road before you ever play at home. How difficult is that to try to overcome?
The travel gets, when you go 3, 4, 5 weeks of the travel, and it wears on you. So I think the big important thing is trying to keep the girls fresh. I think you got to somewhat know when to go hard and know when to back off a little bit. The schedule that we've got this year, it's tougher than what it was last year.
But to talk about that, can you talk about those 20 games? There's a lot of top teams in the country that you're going against.
Absolutely. We open up with Georgia Gwinnett, who's number 7. I know we got the University of Mobile, which I believe is number 19.
Correct.
Brno is in there. That's number 5 right now in the preseason poll. Clark, receiving votes maybe. Maybe they're in the top 25. And then we've got
Thomas and Taylor.
Yeah, Thomas and Taylor's. All them teams are receiving votes. Lindenwood Belleville, who I think probably could be a ranked team. The schedule that they play is very, very good. So, I think the big thing for our kids this year is to get those freshmen up to speed, because I think it's important for us to play these teams when we get in conference play. When we get in March, we want to be at our best, and our kids are going to get exposed to that game speed and hopefully tight ball games that, when it comes conference time, they know how to respond.
Right. Well, we appreciate your time joining us today, and good luck as you guys head to Georgia to get it going there in a couple of weeks.
I appreciate it, and thanks a lot.
All right, that's head softball coach Chris Hammond. His team, as we said, they get their season started on February the 10th down in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Rio Grande baseball also getting ready to start its 2018 season. We had a chance to yesterday sit down and chat with head coach Brad Warnimont about his team's upcoming season, and if we can, let's go ahead and hear from Coach Warnimont. Randy Payton back here with Rio head baseball coach Brad Warnimont. His team gets ready to begin its season this weekend down in Tennessee against UNOH and against Bryan College. And I guess question number one is you always have that itch anytime a new season gets started, and you got to be happy to get going.
Yeah, I think we're ready. I think the weather is throwing us a curveball in baseball terminology here lately, but we were able to get up to the VA and scrimmage on the turf on Friday, and been able to get outside a couple times. So we've actually been on a field once, but jumping right into the fire with number 18, and then Bryan is just outside the top 25 at 26. So we'll see some very good pitching, and it'll be a high caliber of baseball this weekend.
Last year, 34-19-1. You finished third in the River States Conference. Back from that team, 5 position starters, 3 pitchers. You got plenty of new faces on this roster, but at the same time, you got some familiar ones as well.
Yeah, we've got a nice nucleus, and I think the kids that we've brought in some quality guys. We lost a 3 and a 4 hole hitter, and we brought those in the recruiting class. So you know, obviously having a Zach Harvey healthy for the entire year, he's ready to go and his velocity's back up where it needs to be, and the pitching staff, and we're still waiting on an eligibility issue with our closer. So we get him. I think we'll have 3 guys that'll touch 90 on occasion, and you know, we haven't had that type of velocity and talent in there in a while. So, but we've got a lot of depth there. We've got a lot of guys that we feel can be a 1-inning guy and get in there, and with these 9-inning games we're going to be playing in the conference, so it's going to be vitally important to start developing our bullpen, and we feel pretty good about that.
You mentioned Zach Harvey, having him for a full season. You got a lot of guys who are coming back that missed part or all of last season because of injury, and I look down the list here: Dalton Wilburn, Dylan Shockley. Yeah,
and getting those, and now Dalton's at full go, and there's no pitch restrictions on him, so you know, he very well could start this weekend. He could close one game and come back and start another one for us. And Dylan had the meniscus completely removed, so we're easing him back into the swing of things. But he caught 2 innings the other day and he'll play some third base as well. So we want to make sure that he's healthy going into the conference. And you know, some of the other kids that have been vying for playing time are just going to have to step up. And so you know, we'll see where we're at early.
Talk about guys coming back. You got one that's not going to play this year because of injury, and that's Cam Herring.
Well, Cam has surprised the people. Cam,
oh, really?
Yeah, Cam is now
a little bit of breaking
news. Breaking news. He has he'll be playing this Friday. I mean, he has. Kremchek did a sort of not an exploratory surgery, but this is an experimental surgery that he performed on Cam, where he actually drilled a hole into the bone and reattached the ulnar collateral ligament. So Cam was sort of his guinea pig, and Cam is ahead of the learning curve. I mean, he's throwing, he's been hitting. He's 4 months out of Tommy John, and he's playing. And you know, we're sending a cutoff man a little further out in the outfield. He's still throwing, and he's throwing probably about 180 feet right now, which again, because he's such an athletic build, and at one point in time he was telling Kremchek where he was at in his rehab. So he was he's ahead of the game, and he'll be in center field on Friday.
All right, we've talked about some of the returning guys, and we mentioned there's all kinds of new faces, 20-some-odd names on the roster that are new this year. Tell us, I don't know, 2 or 3 guys that we need to look for that are going to make an immediate impact.
Well, David Rodriguez went to Wabash Valley College, and they were a World Series participant, and David hit in the 4-hole for them, and he'll be right in the meat of our lineup, and he's proven that he can swing the bat, and he'll be our starting right fielder, so we're very happy to have him. And he'll be an immediate impact guy for us, as well as Michael Rodriguez from Wabash Valley as well. Both those 2 players played in the Junior College World Series, so they have playing experience, and Michael's a switch hitter, and David swings it left-handed. So that ought to solidify the infield a little bit. And we have, you know, as far as the pitching goes, Pierce Nicely, Division I transfer from Northern Kentucky. He's the one that's in the chute right now, waiting the eligibility. We're waiting on some transcripts to be sent to the NAI and for him to go through the eligibility center. So he will not be on the mound this weekend, but and he is a local boy. He went to Waverly High School, and you know, spent 3 years at Northern Kentucky and pitched for 2 and redshirted last year. So we have 2 years of eligibility for Pierce. So medium impact guys, those are guys that are going to come in and really step on the diamond, and you know, we think have a big time impact.
I think obviously your guys hungry for a return back to the NAIA National Tournament. You got there, you won the conference tournament in 2015 and 16, got upended last year, and I think not making the national kind of left a salty taste in the mouth of some of your guys.
Yeah, and I think the thing is with us is if we are playing at the caliber we need to play at, with the strength of schedule we have. Last year we were on the bubble with our power rating ended up, we were 34th in the nation at the end of the year, and they take 45. So we were well within, but you get run ruled in the conference tournament, and I'm a Raider, so I knew right then that probably put a dagger through us. But with the rest of the schedule that we're playing and the strength of the schedule, I think if we do a 34-19 with this schedule, you know, I think we'll find ourselves in the national tournament, being the fact that 19 of these teams are ranked right now. So, and the other non-conference is Northern Kentucky. So, you know, I think with that being said, if we can take care of business and do what we need to do, plus the conferences, you know, we added Kokomo to the conference, and Kokomo's not going to come in and you know, be at the bottom of the barrel. I mean, they got 2 Division I transfers. They're both 90-mile-an-hour arms, one from Indiana, one from Indiana State, and another junior college arm, and they're going to be really good. So, and you'll get a chance to see them at home here. They'll play down here this year. So, and I don't know about their position players, but as coaches talk and as the crow flies, you hear information, and so I mean they're going to come in, and I think they're going to add some legitimacy to our conference as well. So with an already strong conference getting stronger. So
last thing before we let you go, you mentioned the conference. You're picked number 3 in the preseason poll, so obviously somebody thinks something of you. IU Southeast and Point Park picked ahead of you. And you mentioned a little bit of different setup in terms of conference series this year. Kind of talk about the conference in whole and what you're doing schedule-wise.
Well, we're playing 2 9-inning games. We're playing a 3-game series rather than a 4, which I like that much better. Now 2 out of those 3 games we play. All of our postseason games are 9 innings, and these 9-inning games will help prepare us for that. They're coached totally different. You know, you can be down 3 or 4 runs early and not hit the panic button. You know, you have 7 or 8 innings to come back and get back in the thing. So I think reputability-wise, the conference is going to get a nod at the national level. I think people are going to say, "Woo." You know, they're now playing 9-inning games, not playing 9-inning contests, you know, rather than the 4-7s. And one, statistically, and it's going to help coaches develop their bullpens, which you know, down the road, you know, you're not going to have guys go out there and throw 9-inning complete games. You're going to develop the bullpen, and I think you're going to find out that the better teams with pitching staff, you're going to be pretty transparent. I mean, if you're good, you're going to see that you're good. And I've sort of spoon-fed some of that scheduling early, other than this first weekend. But next weekend at Milligan, we're going to play a 7 and a 9 both days, and down at we go to number 15, Middle Georgia, we're going to play a 7 and a 9. And I begged for those 9-inning games just to, you know, I need to develop those young kids and get them, you know, ready for the conference season. So, but I think I answered your question a little bit.
That number 3 in the preseason poll, is that about where you figured you'd be?
Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, we finished 3rd last year. I think Midway's going to be a sleeper again, and I think they got to feel a little slighted. You know, I think there were 11 players to watch in the conference, and they didn't have one of them. They got a couple of front-end arms that are touching 90 and pretty doggone good. And anytime you have, you know, they won the conference tournament. Anytime you get slighted a little bit, I mean, it's always, there's going to be some bulletin board material, and somebody's going to have a little X by your opponent. So, and they were picked behind us. So, and they run ruled us in the conference tournament. So I think top to bottom, it's the conference is going to continue to get stronger and stronger every year. And, you know, 3rd is about where we should be, and with the understanding that you got to go out and prove things. So,
Coach, we appreciate your time. Good luck this season.
Thank you.
It's head coach Brad Warnimont of Rio Grande Baseball. His club, as we said, gets started this season, or this weekend rather, down in Tennessee. We'll have more of Eye on the Storm when we return in a moment. And we welcome you back to Eye on the Storm. Randy Payton, Jeff Lanham, happy to have you along for our January edition. We've obviously taken a look at softball and at baseball as they both get ready to begin their seasons. And now we look to some of the programs that are in season right now. And we start out with women's basketball, Jeff. And I'll tell you what, 22 consecutive wins, 24-1, and ranked number 21 in the country.
Playing up a storm, right?
They are playing up a storm, no pun intended, and playing very, very well.
They are, and I've said that to Coach Smalley about what impresses me so much with them is the 12-foot jumpers. They're like layups. They probably shoot better from 12 foot than they do off the glass. There are games when that happens, but they're been pretty consistent, and they've got, it's not one person. It's people that are spread out all over, and he's got to be happy with the way they're playing.
Getting down to a point in the season now where they're just about ready to clinch a championship. They're 3.5 games ahead of, or 3 games ahead, I should say, of Indiana East in the East Division. They're 2.5 games ahead of Alice Lloyd for the top spot in the entire conference. Alice Lloyd leads the West Division, and only 5 games left to play. They're a win or 2 away, and maybe a loss or 2 from those teams.
Somebody else. And that could happen. That could happen, a loss on the other side, too. Of course, we go to East, so we've got that yet to play. And the positive is, if we tie with Alice Lloyd, we get the tiebreaker in that we beat them head-to-head. So that's a positive from that end of it. And the idea that we go back to East and play them. So maybe we can sweep them. And it'd be a great place to cinch it up right there.
Yeah. 3 of those final 5 games, by the way, are at home, and that starts with Saturday, as West Virginia Tech will be here to take on the Red Storm. Rio also at home on Saturday the 10th against Ohio Christian, and Tuesday the 13th against Point Park. And want to remind folks that'll be faculty staff appreciation night.
Right, and just to go back one on February the 10th, that's going to be our senior night. There are men's and women's basketball and cheerleaders. Seniors will be honored. And then, yes, on the 13th is that faculty staff appreciation that we have, and want to invite everyone to come out to show. Our seniors get to pick somebody who's been along with them throughout their careers here at Rio to help them get to that spot where they are now. So it's always a fun evening.
Men's basketball, unfortunately, they've lost 4 in a row now. They're 9-16, a tough loss down at Shawnee State last night. They'll have the same remaining schedule that the women do, back in action on Saturday. And they've lost 4 in a row, but they've been in all 4 of those games, and it's one of those seasons where you say, what if? And
right. I know that early on in the year, like 4 of their first 5 losses were on last-second shots, or, somewhere in that. And it's been that way. They've gotten right to that point, and then it just is, something's happened. They've missed a shot, and it's turned into a 3 on the other end, and it's just been that kind of year. They do have these 3 home games, and they could finish up strong. Right now, if it ended today, they would not be in the tournament. But there's a lot of games to be played, or a lot of basketball to be played between now and then.
And so you mentioned that right now they're technically out of the tournament, but they could finish as high as number 2 and
That's
play
right.
at home.
That's right.
In
yeah.
In the East Division.
A lot of things can happen, and in our conference, people are beating each other all over the place. So we'll see. We'll see.
Before we wrap it up, track and field also in the middle of their indoor season, getting ready for that to go over into outdoor. But a new record board on display over in the Line Center now as you walk into the Newt Oliver Arena. And kind of in our closing minutes, if you will, kind of give the background, the story.
That's Don and Barb Conaway, who is Cameron Conaway's mother and father. It plays on our women's basketball program. Has Bernie Tilley, who was an All-American for us, holds many records on that record board, Hall of Fame. He is their minister, and they wanted to do something to honor him, so they created a new record board in Line Center. It's beautiful. We had a dedication a couple weeks ago. Bernie is just awed by it, and they've done a fantastic job with it. And it's good it's something that we can honor our past, our present, and our future student athletes in the track and field.
And really nice in the fact that it's set up in a way that as those records fall, you can replace them rather easily.
The day we opened it up, we already had 4 records that were broke, so that were going to need to be replaced. That's good. That's a good thing.
And again, the next time you're over at the Line Center, if you're here for a Rio basketball game or here to use the fitness center, by all means, check that out. Bowling, good season for them. I think they still may have 1 or 2 more matches left.
They do, and I just talked with assistant coach Phil Carl this morning, talked about how they are probably going to make it into the regional play. And for a first-time program, it's amazing. It's a top 80 teams in the country. and he's got 4 places that they could advance to. Then the top 4 teams from those 20 teams advance to the national tournament.
It's going to be interesting to see how their season ends up. Well, that is all the time we have for our January edition of Eye on the Storm. We invite you back for the February edition next month. We appreciate Coach Hammond and Coach Warnimont. For Jeff, I'm Randy. We'll see you next month on Eye on the Storm.